Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Parivraj ki jaja shobhara Shri Mad Divine Grace Sabai Charana Ravinda Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnu Par Paramahamsa Parivraj ki jaja shobhara Shri Mad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Saranda Saraswati Gosa Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Nandagori Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samvela Bhakti ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So this morning we're reading from the srimadbhagavatam. This is the 4th canto, 11th chapter, text 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiyarayat Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, text 15, excuse me. Bhutai Panchapir Arabdhair.
Bhutai Panchapir Arabdhair.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purusho Iha.
Yoshit Purushayo Iha.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purushayor Iha.
Yoshit Purushayo Iha.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusham Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Everyone like to chant?
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Yoshit Purushayoriha. Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purusha Yorihi.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Bhutai Panchavir Arabdhyar.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Yoshit Purusha Evahi.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Tayor Vyavayat Sambhutir.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Yoshit Purushayoriha.
Okay. Synonyms. Bhutai.
Hi.
By the material elements.
Material elements.
Panchavihi.
Panchari.
5.
5.
Arabdhaihi.
Arabdhai.
Developed.
Developed.
Yoshit.
Yoshit.
Woman.
Woman.
Purushaha.
Purushaha.
Man.
Man.
Eva.
Eva.
Just so.
Just so.
He. Certainly.
Certainly.
Tayoho.
Tayo.
Of them.
Of them.
Vyavayat.
Vyavayat.
By sexual life.
By sexual life.
Sambhutihi.
Sambhuti.
The further creation.
Further creation.
Yoshit.
Yoshit.
Of women.
Of women.
Purushayoho.
Purushayoho.
And of men.
And of men.
Iha.
Iha.
In this material world.
In this material world.
Translation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man or a woman, is created by these elements. By the sexual life of man and woman, the number of men and women in this world is further increased. Please repeat. The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements.
The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements.
And thus everything, including the body of a man
And thus everything, including the body of a man
or a woman,
or a woman,
is created by these elements.
is created by these elements.
By the sexual life of a man and woman,
By the sexual life of a man and
the
woman,
number of men and women in this material world
the number of men and women in this material world
is further increased.
further increases.
Purport. When Swayambhuva Manu saw that Dhruva Maharaj understood the philosophy of Vaishnavism and yet was still dissatisfied because of his brother's death, he gave him an explanation of how this material body is created by the 5 elements of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed, Prakate Kriyamanani, 3rd chapter, 27th verse. Everything is created, maintained, and annihilated by the material modes of nature. In the background, of course, there is the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya Jakshena, 9th chapter, 10th verse. In the 9th chapter, Krishna says, under my superintendence, material nature is acting. Swayambhuva Manu wanted to impress upon Dhruva Maharaj that the death of the material body of his brother was not actually the Yaksha's fault. It was an act of the material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has immense varieties of potencies, and they are in different gross and subtle ways. They act in different gross and subtle ways. It is by such powerful potencies that the universe is created, although grossly it appears to be no more than the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Similarly, the bodies of all species of living entities, whether human beings or demigods, animals or birds, are also created by the same 5 elements, and by sexual union they expand into more and more living entities. That is the way of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. One should not be disturbed by the waves of material nature in this process. Dhruva Maharaj was indirectly advised not to be afflicted by the death of his brother because our relationship with the body is completely material. The real self, spirit soul, is never annihilated or killed by anyone. Om Agyanti Vedandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Jaksurin Minidam Dhina Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashati Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So with your blessings, I'll try to say a few words.
You got it.
Thank you. Bhutai panchavir arabdha yoshit purushe vahi tayor vyavayat sambhutir yoshit purushayoriha. The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man or a woman, is created by these elements. By the sexual life of man and woman, the number of men and women in this material world is further increased. So one point is that Swayambhuva Manu is shifting his preaching. You know, sometimes all the time when we're preaching to people, sometimes you have to shift the tact. It's a sailing expression, you know that, the tact. The wind, you're going to shift your sail. Because they may not be catching on to what you're saying. Maybe it's they just can't appreciate a certain aspect of preaching Krishna consciousness, maybe way over their head, maybe you have to come back down to simpler explanation, whatever it may be. We have to become expert in how we preach to people. And we see that in the lives of the great preachers, like Srila Prabhupada. He was expert. He could preach to anyone because he knew exactly what they needed to hear. That's one thing we always ask ourselves when we're preaching, what does this person really need to hear? Like Prabhupada, many times I have news reporters, they would ask so many questions, and Prabhupada would just say something else. Right? Yeah. And it came out many times, the devotees were noticing that Prabhupada was just preaching not to a news person, but actually to a spirit soul, a lost soul in this material world. He really his concern was how to get this person out of Maya, you know, or to say something that maybe he'll write it down appropriately and help a lot of people get out of Maya. He wasn't so much interested in playing some game with them, which sometimes they play in the news, as you see, it's simply sensationalism or this or that or whatever. He wasn't really concerned. He was concerned with what does this person need to hear at this particular time. And sometimes it'd be completely different, whether he was preaching to the news person or his disciples or guests or whatever. Prabhupada sometimes would take some interesting tangents in his discussion, room conversations or whatever. And devotees were sometimes, well, why is Prabhupada saying that? Why is he going off in this direction or that direction? But Prabhupada was very, very conscientious of as all good preachers, of what does someone really need to hear at this particular time and place to understand Krishna consciousness. So it's described here that Swayambhuva Manu, the previous few verses were about directly Krishna consciousness, what a great devotee Dhruva Maharaj was or is, and the fact that he was already Krishna conscious, and he was already very, very dear to the Lord, but that didn't seem to completely satisfy Dhruva Maharaj. So now Swami Bhuvamana is taking a different direction in his preaching to him, trying to have him fully understand what's going on, and get him to stop and understand why he should stop killing the yakshas. And the whole situation with his brother's death. So, there's a little bit of basic philosophy here about the material body, the material elements, just like in the Bhagavad Gita. Where does Krishna say, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu? What chapter is that? Do you know? 7th chapter, right? He talks about these Mahabhutas, the 5. Actually, there's 5. Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu, Mam, right? The mind, intelligence, and ego. So, all these elements make up the material nature. Then he says there's something else right after that verse. You know the verse that?
Yeah. There's also the soul.
Yeah, there's also the soul. There's another nature. There's another energy. So Krishna is explaining all these things, how to see what's going on in this material world. Because, the very last line or two of the purport is the main thrust of it, that one should not be disturbed by the waves of material nature in this process. So Swami Bhuvamana is explaining that everything is going on as the material nature is moving, it's moving, but it's not us. We're not this material nature. So the first verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes is this Prakrite Kriyamanani in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasa Ahankara Vimudatma Kartamiti Manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, the spirit soul bewildered by the influence of false ego thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the 3 modes of material nature. So, this ahankara vimudatma, due to false ego, one is bewildered, and kartamiti manyate, that means he thinks he's the doer, I'm doing everything. So here Dhruva Maharaj is thinking, oh, my brother was killed by this yaksha, I'm going to go and have to avenge the death of my brother, like that. But Prakrite Kriyamanani, Gunai Karmani Sarvasha, everything is actually being carried out by the modes of material nature. So in this particular verse he's saying, Swami Bhuvamana, that look around, all these 5 elements, everything in this material world, gross bodies and so on, it's the 5 elements. Alright? And all these material bodies, the body of a man and a woman, male and female, this is 5 elements. And by procreation, more and more living entities are coming around. That's what's going on. Prakrite Kriyamanani, the material nature is acting. Of course, the next verse is that Maya Dakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. Krishna says that I am the superintendent of this material world, and actually I am in the background moving these elements. It's my arrangement. It's by my arrangement all these things are going on. I'm watching everything, and I'm doing all of this. So that's what's really happening here. And we think, no, it's all me. It's up to me to do this, to do that, and it's my fault, or their fault. But actually it's the material nature just moving. And a devotee or wise person is a person who stands back and can see all this going around them. And they don't identify with it. As soon as you identify with it, you're carried away. Well, a simple example may be just like a merry-go-round. You ever get on a merry-go-round?
Yeah.
So it's going around, all of a sudden you jump on it, woo, you're carried away. Especially those ones in the playground. Let's stick with those small ones, right? When you're a kid, all of a sudden you just jump in, you jump on it. All of a sudden, woo, you stand back a little bit, all the crazy kids on it getting sick and dizzy and all that. When you jump on it too, you're carried away by it. It's just moving. So the material nature, the modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, and the elements, and all by Krishna's arrangements. Well, there's a big show going on here. And also we start to identify with it. So he's saying, Dhruva Maharaj, Prabhu, don't identify with all of this. You got carried away because you're identifying with it. This is my brother. Now you're being carried away. But it's just a play of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's energies. The 5 great elements and so on. And this is bodies and all these different bodies and so on. So this is a lesson we all have to learn. There's a very powerful verse here, this Prakriti Kriyamana Guna Karmani Sarvasaha. And Krishna's explaining what's really going on in this material world. And this ahankara means a false ego. The false ego is that intermediate element that connects the soul with this material world. False ego. Very, very, very subtle. In fact, it's the most subtle of the material elements, isn't it? Isn't a false ego the most subtle? It's above the intelligence, above the mind, above the gross elements. It's very, very subtle. Subtle means it's very, very difficult to detect. Very, very difficult to detect. So unless one becomes enlightened, one can't detect the false ego. So it says ahankara vimudatma. One is mudha. Mudatma means bewildered, but vimuda means what? You know this word, this prefix V means?
Yeah, lots.
A lot.
More.
Very. Totally.
Very.
Very much. So because of the false ego, we become vimudatma. Become completely bewildered. That means we identify with the material body. So Prabhu once said that 99% of the people in this material world are self-realized. That they're their body. I mean, we're just completely convinced. We're completely convinced. And until we go through the Cetodarpana Marjanam, purify the heart, as mundane consciousness, we keep identifying with the material body. So we have to purify the soul, and as we're purifying the heart, we have to engage in devotional service, because devotional service is activity not on the mundane platform. So it's just like physical therapy or PT. You ever been in physical therapy?
No.
So you get in a car accident or something goes wrong with your body, then part of the rehabilitation is physical therapy. How to use your arm again, how to use your leg again, or whatever. All these different painful exercises. Sometimes after maybe you have a shoulder operation or knee operation, you have to go to PT or physical therapy. It is very difficult and painful, but it's how to start using your limbs of your body again, whatever was affected. Like that. And gradually, the feeling comes back, the movement comes back, and you can start using your hand or your leg or your arm just as you did before the accident or the surgery. So devotional service is something like that. Just like, what does this Chaitanya Charitamrita mean? How's Prabhupada translate that? Chaitanya Charitamrita, right?
Yeah, the
See,
living force and immortality.
Yeah. Now, what does it mean? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated, what does it mean to be a devotee?
Yeah.
What does it actually mean to be acting on the spiritual platform? It's like in the Bhagavad Gita, there's 2 or 3 places where Arjuna asks Krishna, can you please tell me, how do you know someone's transcendental? What does it mean to be acting on the transcendental platform? Otherwise, this is up to all kinds of crazy speculation. People have so many ideas what it means to be spiritual, like that. And Prabhupada always joke about, because I have a big beard and saffron and this and that, I must be very spiritual. No, that's not a quality of necessarily being spiritual at all. So what does it actually mean to be a spiritual person? Or just like you don't get angry, you don't this, you don't that, like that. There's a famous story, Prabhupada, I think it was Vivekananda, isn't it? Some yogi that Prabhupada said had a famous picture that someone was offering money and he was like shunning the money.
Yeah, Ramakrishna.
Ramakrishna. And Prabhupada said, you should take a picture of me, I'm just raking it in. Because I know how to use every single penny in Krishna's service. That's Krishna's money. It should be used in his service. So, how to engage in the Lord's service, that the devotees teach us. And by acting on that platform, it's like physical therapy, gradually. What is it, verse? Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatpatena nirmalam. That we have all these sarva, upadi means false designations. We all have all these false designations. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam, we have to become free from vinirmuktam. Tatpatena nirmalam means all these dirty things, all these false impressions. But by engaging our senses in the master of the senses, that's devotional service. By engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses, gradually it all comes back to us. So it's a combination of both our sadhana, our daily practices of chanting and purifying the heart, and what we do all day long, what we do with our senses, engage in the service of the Lord. As is described here, that one is bewildered by the false ego, kartam iti manyate, the thing that the doer. And in the very sense of this body is the doer. This is me, and I'm doing all these things. I'm very, very active and like that. But how about the soul? What's the soul actually doing? So Swayambhu Madhu was trying to impress upon Dhruva Maharaj to think about this, and that the death of the material body of his brother was not actually the Yaksha's fault, ultimately. It's not that you can do something wrong and say, hey, Prabhu, it was the modes of material nature. Don't blame me, the offering was late or burnt or this happened or that happened or whatever. It's just them modes, those three modes, they're everywhere, right? So they're all powerful, Krishna says, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, Daivi Shaguna Ma'is, Krishna says, three modes of material nature are insurmountable, so don't blame me. No. But the point is, ultimately, this is Krishna's material world, and we should be very, very careful, or try to have that realization that it's Krishna's material nature is moving, and there's just his different potencies and so on are moving along, and not to become identify with it. Just identify with Krishna. There's a nice purport Prabhupada says, a devotee is carefree. And that purport Prabhupada says, a devotee is carefree because he doesn't take sides. Talking about political things. I guess sometimes you hear, unfortunately, devotees talking about politics, and they get all worked up about politics, right? That's not what devotees do. They're not involved in these mundane taking sides in the material world. They're neutral because they see what's actually going on here. It's a waste of time, Prabhupada says. The scriptures say. So it's just there's a material nature doing the same thing day in and day out. Is there really any difference in the news every day? They just change the names. Something got blown up in some part of the world, right? Some airplane somewhere in the world fell out of the sky. Some political leader is fighting with another political leader. You just move the names around. But it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact thing. It's happening over and over again because it's the modes of material nature. It's the same modes of material nature, just stirring it up. Ignorance, passion, and goodness. Just stirring it up, stirring it up. And there's enough going on to keep us entertained or attracted forever. See, it says here, it's Krishna's potency. Now, Krishna is so expert, just like we hear about Srimati Radharani, she never cooks the same preparation twice. Right? So Krishna is very expert. He can make a different type of Maya every single moment for us. And we never get tired. That's the material world. It's to keep us distracted. We want to get distracted, so Krishna says, okay, I can handle that, because I'm Krishna. Krishna's ability to distract us is unlimited. So it will never come to an end where, I've had enough. In the sense that I've seen it all. You haven't seen it all. But the devotee goes, I've seen enough. See the difference? One is I've seen it all, and one is I've seen enough. You'll never be able to see it all. In fact, how many times have we gone up and down through the heavenly planets and down again and many. So you never see it all. You never see it all. It's a question of seeing enough. And seeing enough means there's an awakening in one's intelligence. In other words, how long is this going to go on? Just like sometimes you meet someone that has been in many different relationships. You go, when are they going to learn? It's a sidelight, but I was listening to one lecture, and Prabhupada was talking about how strict Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was. And he goes, and his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda, was not so strict. And this is right after Prabhupada was telling the story about his father used to bring ganja every month to a local yogi.
Wow.
And he's saying how in India, even to this day, for sadhus to smoke ganja is not considered publicly to be a fault or anything, right? But we know in the scriptures and so on, it is. It's not pakka at all, but they do it, right? And then he said, well, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is very, very, very strict. He said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not so strict. And then I think it was Madhavisa was maybe in a walk in Melbourne. So he said, what do you mean Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not so strict? And he said, he remarried. He remarried, and therefore his son, Bhaktisiddhanta, used to call him a, what was that? Not a Vishayi, something about a detached householder. his own father. He criticized his own father because he remarried.
Yeah.
Like that, in other words, he remarried. So I don't know where I got off on that tangent. How did I get off on that tangent? What was he talking about?
People that are in their relationships so many times. And
Yeah. So, you remarried, and so many different, but it can go on and on and on and on. You just say, how many times do you want to get hit in the head? We had one bhakti here back in the 80s. He had all these bumps on his head. He's showing us, this is where my wife hit me with a frying pan. This is where my wife hit me with a baseball bat. This is where my wife hit me with a... You're not still married, are you? No. But I mean, how much are you going to take? How. So the material nature has endless possibilities for us to enjoy and to become entrapped and so on. And it'll never come to an end. Krishna's like that. Just like you think Amazon.com has a lot of things for you. The whole material world is one big Amazon.com. And you just keep ordering stuff. It never ends. It never ends. And they, well, maybe that didn't work out, I'll try something else. That didn't work out, I'll try something else. That didn't work out, I'll try something else. Because the soul is always looking perpetually for happiness, so the desire to find some happiness never runs out, and the material nature just keeps supplying. But you know something? We'll never be happy here because it's the material nature. So sooner or later, by the grace of the devotees of the Lord, there's an awakening. By good association. Also there's an awakening of intelligence by the mercy of a great devotee, by Krishna's mercy in the heart. There's an awakening that one goes, I could keep doing this forever, or I could just stop. Try to stop it, because it's never going to lead to my happiness. Because it's just the material nature offering one thing after the next. Sometimes Srila Prabhu would say when they were cooking for Prabhupada, Prabhupada would have something very, very simple. And he'd say, I've eaten so many different things in my life. After you've had it. I've eaten so many different things. It's true you can bring me this, but I've had so many different things. So that awakening of intelligence is what's being requested of Dhruva Maharaj here by Swayambhuva Manu. It's the material nature just acting. You have to back off and understand your position and your brother's position, the yaksha. These are all just instruments of the Lord in this play of material nature, and you really have nothing to do with it. We should only touch the material nature as needed, as necessary. Right? As necessary. We have to we're in contact with the material nature just like we're in contact with this material body. So what is our instruction? Only as much as necessary. It's like salt. Right? If you don't have enough salt on your food, it doesn't taste so good. If you got too much salt on your food, doesn't taste good either. So just the right, just a little bit, just whatever's needed. So a devotee engages with the material nature just as much as needed. Therefore, it's called minimizing, right? You hear this word, minimizing. We minimize the bodily needs, what you need, keep body and soul together and so on, and engage the rest of the time in devotional service because there's no value for us. And when one has that awakening, that's where spiritual life really starts picking up. Like that. So there's a few points here to think about and contemplate. It's 8:30. I think I'm supposed to stop. Spare you any more. Are there any questions or comments on this verse by Swayambhuva Manu to Dhruva Maharaj? Basic Bhagavad Gita philosophy. Okay. Any other stories that anyone wants to tell? To elaborate on this point? Are you spellbound? Is that why you're so quiet? By the philosophy of the Bhagavatam? So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.